Tonight on What the Heck Do I Know's PM Update Positive Correlations and Home Insights segments, we're talking as usual about project management. We've made the point before that project management skills are life skills, and today we're going to explore and explain how. In exploration, we will see how global organizations view necessary life skills, and to explain, we will show a situation where you can use project management skills to handle a typical life event so you can see how they can be used to handle your situations like a great project manager. All this coming up next, so stay tuned. Hey guys, I really enjoy making these videos for you, so if you get value from them or know someone who would, please support us by hitting like, subscribe, leaving comments, and sharing. What the Heck Do I Know presents PM Update with Leah and Mia. And now your host, Leah. Welcome back to PM Update. I'm Leah. UNICEF, UNESCO, and the WHO have a joint list of 10 skills that fit into 3 general categories. The 3 general categories are 1. Critical thinking and decision-making skills, 2. Interpersonal and communication skills, and 3. Coping and self-management skills. Now, all 3 of these skill groups are necessary for good project management, and you can absolutely learn these skills to make improvements in your life. The Project Management Institute defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Every unique task or new idea that you pursue is a project. This includes things we do every day. Now, we did a show previously about how making a meal is a project. Even though you might make a meal every day, every time you do it, it is still a unique task because the variables have changed. In the same way, even if you're a contractor or a developer that has built hundreds of houses, each house is a unique project because the variables have changed. Now, Mia has some stories for us to illustrate these points. Mia, what can you tell us about your stories? Since we're talking about life skills, we will hear again today from our regular guest, life coach Rachel Roberts. Joining her is our junior reporter, Josie, to talk about the details of life skills as outlined by those international organizations you mentioned earlier, and how they fit into a project management skill set. In the second half of our show, we look at a fairly common major activity for most people, moving. Brenda and Sam are moving and using a project management perspective to make it go as smoothly as possible. These sound like excellent stories. I can't wait to watch these. Now, for our first quote question of the day, do you know who said, "Learning how to learn is life's most important skill"? The answer to this question and Mia's stories coming right up. Rachel and Josie are together this week to talk and show us some key life skills and how they fit into a project management framework. Thanks so much for meeting with us today to talk about life skills. Can you tell us a little bit about how these align with project management skills? Well, in the 3 major categories, critical thinking and decision-making skills, interpersonal and communication skills, and coping and self-management skills, these are all things that make good project managers, and incidentally, skills that can help you throughout life. Most of the development I do with my clients relates to one or all of these skills. What can you tell us about the specific skills in these general categories? Well, let's start with the first general category, critical thinking and decision-making. In order to be good at this, you need to be able to gather information and accurately evaluate the consequences of the actions you take, as well as the likely actions of others. This one reminds me of a former client in particular. Sam was always jumping into new situations without thinking them through or doing any research. He was always trying to take shortcuts at work and in his personal life, and it got him into a lot of trouble. He came to see me after he had just lost his second job. He had found a shorter way to send out invoices to customers that gave the same end result, but did not provide the same internal documentation. This resulted in many customers being double billed and a flood of complaints, and that's why he got fired. Sam needed to learn about gathering information. Once he found the shortcut, he should have asked someone who knew more about the system to see if this efficiency solution was really a viable option. And he should have evaluated the possible consequences of his action and how this would affect others. From his perspective, he was taking initiative to be more efficient and make things better. But in the end, no one appreciated all of the extra work and the internal audit they had to go through because of him. Project managers use their critical thinking skills all the time. On construction projects, for example, they will often run into situations that are not exactly as expected. They have to come up with alternate solutions to get the same end result and make sure that their project still meets all of the required criteria and specifications. Everything is a balance between time, quality, and cost. And a project manager who can't make those evaluations and decisions isn't a project manager for long. It makes sense that a project manager would need critical thinking and decision-making skills, but what about interpersonal and communication skills? Well, those life skills include many things that project managers rely on. Being good with verbal and nonverbal communication, actively listening to others, the ability to express yourself and give feedback are all key elements to team communication. And most projects require the ability to cooperate in a team. It is also valuable for a project manager to be an effective negotiator, be assertive, and manage conflict. To be good at it, you need to be able to convince people to work together despite different groups having different priorities. And when people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, being assertive or being able to listen to others' concerns can help you get things done. I had another client that needed a lot of work in this area. Jack was an IT project manager and had really horrible interpersonal skills. He thought he was smarter than everyone else, and when he was promoted to project manager, he became really insufferable. Barking orders, not listening to ideas from other team members, and lots of arguments within the team that got blown way out of proportion. Jack didn't handle them when they were small disagreements because he didn't want to deal with it. On his last project, the conflicts got so bad that in order to keep his job, he was required to take part in some soft skills education, and he decided to see me rather than sign up for a class. He was already good at being assertive. He was somewhat effective at negotiation, but the only kind he knew was forcing his own way. He worked on his listening and delivery skills and his ability to give as well as take. This is one of the easier life skills to develop. Practice makes perfect, and we constantly have the need to communicate with others. So once you get some idea of what to do, there is ample opportunity to practice it. When you explain it like that, I can see why communication is so important. What about the last one? Coping and self-management skills are kind of the foundation for everything else. Self-esteem, self-awareness, and self-evaluation are the skills that get you to the other skills. If you don't think you can do it, generally you won't. Self-awareness and who you are is developed in childhood, but if you don't have a good sense of self, you won't really understand how you relate to others and how what you do and say affects them, which leads to self-evaluation and being able to relate and compare yourself to others. Self-management also makes it possible to set goals, and goals are personal projects. Control of self and being able to relate to others in a socially appropriate way shows that you can handle troubles when they come and be responsible for working through it. Derek came to see me several years ago because he wanted to improve at work. He was passed over for promotion a couple of times and was very bitter about it. Derek had a serious anger management problem. At work, he was good at time management and getting his projects done, but no one liked working with him because he was often angry and had an explosive temper. I actually recommended that he see a therapist first and then come back if he still thought he needed help. Eventually, he and his therapist were able to work through the root cause of his anger issues, and he was able to not be so angry all the time. He sent me a message not long after letting me know his therapy was working out and he didn't need a life coach because he was making progress at work again. His therapist was able to provide him with tools for dealing with his bigger emotions in a more socially acceptable way and at the appropriate time, and he wasn't exploding at his coworkers anymore. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Rachel, and walking us through these life and project management skills. It was my pleasure. I enjoy being on the show. To clarify on the UNICEF, UNESCO, and WHO list of 10 necessary life skills, they are 1. Problem solving, 2. Critical thinking, 3. Effective communication, 4. Decision making, 5. Creative thinking, 6. Interpersonal relationships, 7. Awareness building, 8. Empathy, 9. Coping with stress, and 10. Coping with emotions. Everyone has some of these skills, but we could all use some improvement on them at some point in our lives. That is so true, Mia, and everything on this list is a great skill to have if you're a project manager, because managing your life is the biggest and best project you will ever manage. And now, the answer to our quote question from the top of the show. Do you know who said, "Learning how to learn is life's most important skill"? That was author and educational consultant Tony Buzan. Now, in the second half of our show, Mia has an example of how to tackle regular life tasks like a project manager. And we have a second quote question. Do you know who said it takes half of your life before you discover life is a do-it-yourself project? Mia's story and the answer to this question are coming right up. Stay tuned so you don't have to wait until your life is half over to figure this out. Brenda and Sam have been talking about needing more space for the last year. They have a growing family and have been spending more days working from home with young kids, and now that their lease is almost up, they have finally decided it's time to make a move. To make sure that the move goes as smoothly as possible, they decided to manage the process like a project. Brenda and Sam started the process with initiation and planning. They already knew that they wanted to stay in the same neighborhood and that they needed more square footage. They knew what they were willing to pay for the apartment and the general timeline for the move. So they concentrated on collecting information on what was available and when, and how much the move would actually cost. Together, they decided to give themselves 3 weeks to complete the move and spend no more than $1,500 to complete the move. All the rest of the tasks and plans would be decided by whether they could fit into this schedule and budget. Sam made some calls to request quotations from movers, pest control in the new apartment, painting and cleaning the old apartment, and surface cleaning the new apartment. They also needed new furniture for the larger place, so that needed to be factored into the budget. Brenda built the overall schedule to include all of the prep items, like transferring the utilities accounts, packing, cleaning, pest control, and inspections. Then she built a schedule for the detailed execution of the move. Once the quotations came in for the different services, they would be able to finalize the budget and schedule for everything. As the quotations started to come in, they had several reasonable choices for pest control and painting. There were some problems with the quotations for cleaning, as the company quoted them rates higher than the published discount they were running at the time. After a couple of phone calls, those were resolved, and the services for the published rates was confirmed and scheduled. The big cost problem for them were the moving company's quotations. They received 4 quotations from different companies. One was in their budget, but they found later that company had several bad reviews, and they weren't willing to take the risk of their furniture or fragile items being broken. The other 3 were higher than they expected, so now they had a decision to make. They could do more of the packing and moving themselves, or go over the planned budget. In the end, they decided to increase their budget for the move because the additional work was not worth the risk of going over their schedule and missing their turnover date. And the extra physical labor and time required would tire them out and take time away from the other activities they already had planned. It just wasn't worth the additional stress. When they went shopping for the additional furniture, they were a little overwhelmed by the prices there, too. Rather than going over their budget again, they decided to only purchase a new bed for one of the kids because the old one was too small, and leave the new table and chairs for another couple of months and try to catch a sale later in the year. They made arrangements for delivery the day after the movers were coming and saved a little money in the process. In the end, they made their scheduled move-out date and only went a little over their original budget. But they did it by making a conscious decision rather than by doing it by accident. Using project management skills and processes made it easier to keep it all together and take some of the stress out of the move. Taking a project management approach, Sam and Brenda planned out all the necessary tasks, put them to a schedule, and established a budget. They had an activities list and a timeline for doing it all so nothing was forgotten, and it was all completed on time. They had a list of services and products they would need, and the budget established at the beginning allowed them to make well-thought-out decisions about changes. It also helped them from going too much over when they were shopping for furniture. That's right. Being organized about your approach and sticking to that organizational structure can really help with simple as well as complicated life tasks. It can help you make more rational decisions when you set limits on time and cost ahead of time and only change them when you really don't have a choice. Brenda and Sam could have gone with the cheaper service and regretted it, or they could have taken on more of the work themselves and regretted that if it cost them penalty fees for not getting everything moved in time. Is there anything that you take a project management approach to? If so, let us know in the comments. Now, the answer to our second quote question for this show. Do you know who said it takes half of your life before you discover life is a do-it-yourself project? It was self-help author Napoleon Hill. Now that's all I have for What the Heck Do I Know's PM Update with Leah and Mia and our Positive Correlations and Home Insight segments for this week. Thank you for watching and see you next time on our next episode of PM Update. Good night. Hey there, don't forget to support these videos by hitting like and subscribe. I love seeing comments too.